Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel, and also welcome back to this Zero to Hero challenge on my Brewmaster Monk. So last time you were here, I hit 463 of 64 I think, and also I got KSM, almost just exactly from the last video. I was honestly a little bit surprised by how fast it just went by to get KSM, but then again, this season is, I mentioned easier, but it feels like the brackets kind of changed, but I want to talk a little bit about that like later in this video. First of all, let's check our vault for this week. Now, to be honest, the options are not really that interesting. I got a bag and some hands and then a chest. And I decided to go with the chest simply just because the chest that I already had was a champion, where this is a hero. So since I'm gonna like turn this into my tier set, which is, you know, best in slot, it seems like a good investment to just, you know, have that in hero. I could have also taken the hands right there, but you know, the eye level difference is better with the chest, so I just went with that. Also, I don't want to like make it sound like getting a chest is like really bad, because like chest is one of those like equipment pieces that have like the most amount of stats on it, so actually getting that like to a high eye level is like a really big upgrade. But what is really cool is, you know, since we hit KSM, we are also allowed to buy a tier set. And one of those things that I can buy is, you know, new shoulders. Because the shoulders I have, I think is like veteran or something like that. So I'm gonna get like huge eye level upgrade here. And we are like really like getting closer and closer to 470. And of course it's a new week, so of course we need new transmog. I went by this like, you know, almost a similar set to the Zero to Hero episode 2. But this time I went with the red variant that I finally got, like, you know, all the currency found for. I think I did like, you know, those the dig site like 6 or 7 times every day on my Demon Hunter to like afford this as quickly as possible. Still missing the back piece, but you know, I think it's pretty good for what I have. So the first key that we are doing this week is going to be a 16 Wakefest mana. And, you know, we can talk a little bit about like the goals for this week, because this is, you know, not tyrannical, it's fortified, I'm sorry. And with that, I actually have a bunch of keys that, like, you know, that's quite low from like last 2 weeks actually. I think I have like an 8, and I have like an untimed rise, and like, you know, so I have like a lot of like a score that I can like, you know, kind of cherry pick from and get from. So my goal for this, because we also like in the last episode pushed our ways into the top 10s in the like key levels, and I think it's possible to like time everything on like a 17 or a 16, right? And the reason why I'm a little bit hesitant is simply just because fortified is kind of like the tank affix a little bit. So what you'll find out if you're playing tank and you're pushing into higher keys is that tyrannical honestly tends to be quite easy in the tank. Very few, honestly, especially this season, there's honestly very few tank mechanics on the bosses. And also there's like only a few bosses that have like really severe tank busters. I'm talking about like, you know, the tree and Dark Heart Thicket, for example, like that boss. And at least from my experience, most of your fails or like, you know, wipes and stuff like that will actually be caused by other people on the bosses on tyrannical weeks, right? It makes sense. That's more like pressuring the healer, honestly, and the DPSers tyrannical. Fortified though, that's really all on you, because you're the one who's gonna have to like really deal with this trash, right? I mean, everyone else, yeah, they get cast and mechanics and stuff like that, but you're the one who actually has to take a lot of the melee damage, and that's really where like you can really feel the oomph of this like, you know, damage increase that they get on fortified weeks. So last week on tyrannical, you know, I was like pretty optimistic. I was like, oh yeah, we can probably definitely like time 17s, and like we can go into like, you know, probably even like maybe like a 20 like this week and stuff like that. But then fortified hit, and I really like noticed how much extra damage I'm actually just taking. Honestly, again, playing on the monk, kind of comfortable with it, as long as you get okay with just being in red stagger. Someone pointed out in the comments, I believe it was my last video, saying something like that growing as a monk is learning that red stagger doesn't actually mean immediately danger, and sometimes it can actually be good for you, because as mentioned before, the more you stagger, the more you heal, that everything, right? The more the better. So actually being a little bit comfortable with just being in Red Stagger has honestly made this much more nicer than if I would definitely be stressing if I just did not want to hit Red Stagger at all. After that little warm-up key, I decided to push my own key, which is a 17 Nataldazar, where I make some pretty nasty mistakes, but we're gonna talk about that as they come up. It's fortified, so of course I like to go up here and bloodlust this pack, these two packs actually, before I go down to the first boss. I have seen someone do this still like bloodlust on this pack, like when like it's tyrannical week, just for the bloodlust timer and stuff like that, so you can get it back earlier. I definitely don't think that's worth it. I like cycle between bloodlusting here and on the first boss between like the 2 weeks. But I mean, I can't like deny that it's really nice to potentially have 2 like free bloodlust during this dungeon. Oh, and by the way, here is my biggest mistake. I decided to like go ham and just, you know, I expect my party to like show up, but as you can see on the minimap, I'm way ahead of my party right here. So I unfortunately is gonna end up actually dying, which is gonna cause a huge amount of chaos because all those raptors are gonna jump on my party that finally like, you know, showed up. I think they were fighting a shade, which is, you know, another thing. It's going to be a like volcanic and shade week this week, which is honestly pretty like good like push week. As long as you don't like play with like full melee, it's usually pretty fine. The only thing that's like really negative about playing with shades is simply just that it really prolongs the combat. And you as a tank, you're really gonna notice it with your healers because they are gonna just run out of mana because you can actually like chain pull, so like you're not ever out of combat, meaning that the healer never get a chance to get some mana. So just from a like, you know, a little PSA to other tanks, make sure that you would eventually like sometimes actually kill the shade, so you actually go out of combat, so you can actually let the healer get some mana back, or else it can be a struggle. There's also like other places like in Rise, right before the Alliance Horde boss, the Battleground, I think, whatever it's called. You actually can't enter when the shade spawns that area because, you know, you're in combat. So there are different like, you know, areas or like times where like the shade can be really annoying simply just because of like it prolongs the combat like time. So like even though it might not be an inherent danger to you or to most people that like, you know, can like walk away, it will actually just still by existing add a few seconds to the timer. Oh, and of course communicate to your healer. I tell him here that I noticed that he has like low mana, so he doesn't have to like stress about if I'm paying attention or like, you know, whatever. Just, you know, communication development. This is what I've talked about. You need to kill the shades. I know they're dying, you know, on their own, but you need to kill them so it like goes faster. So the healer actually can get mana. And another thing is, you don't actually have to wait until the healer has like full mana before you go. You can see here, like I'm pulling as soon as he starts drinking, and he's like at like 75% mana right now. You know. So as soon as like they start drinking, you can kind of like go, right? Just make sure you don't lock them out of a boss arena if you're actually going into a boss. Like if he's standing outside, just, you know, be mindful of that. But also just, you know, they keep going, right? So besides the part in the beginning where I fight the 2 raptor packs on my own, this is also one of my worst mistakes. And it's like you can kind of like kite them up towards the stairs, like through the fire here. The problem is you have to kill the casters before you do that, and that's something that I completely brain farted. And I was like, oh, I can just move up, and I'm like, oh no, I actually can't. And this actually leads to this really, really awkward place where like I'm going up a little bit, and then I'm like, oh no, I need to go back and go down. And here I'm realizing, oh, I need to commit, and now I'm going up. Absolutely terrible pulling here on my side. And it's just a reminder to you guys, whatever you do, commit, right? So this would actually have been, I should have stayed there until the casters were dead, absolutely. But if I moved, I should have actually decided to move the whole way through so my party could see, okay, I'm going up, right? This back and forth, halfway stuff like that, that's like what's gonna kill your entire party. Whatever you do, you just need to go like 100% in on it. And also here I'm just owning up, so I'm like, yeah, that was my bad, right? That was really, really bad pulling. So yeah, definitely not the cleanest Azaldazar at all, and I don't even think this is gonna be the cleanest this week. But we actually do manage at the end of the day to actually get through it. One thing I didn't want to say, like I noticed that we had multiple people dying to the Juggernauts here in this dungeon, which are really dangerous because they are the ones who's gonna jump ahead and spin around and hit the random. They are trying to hit the target that's the furthest away. But I just want to say one thing that has really, really helped me a lot is you can actually go in, I think in some big wigs, and you can actually go in and put a little sound whenever he's casting it, or just before he's actually starting to cast it. And that has saved my life multiple times on DPS ults and stuff like that, because even though you can kind of guess if it's you, especially if you're playing Hunter and you're a mile behind the group, you kind of know that it's going to go after you. So you can kind of you get time to pop your defensives and stuff like that. So just a little reminder that you can actually go into settings and put sound cues on different things, so you kind of don't miss it and can prepare a little bit for it. So we got almost 40 score from that key alone, but unfortunately it did spook me a little bit, us dying a lot, and also just me getting hit in the face so much. So I did decide to go and go into a little bit of a lower key, a 15 fall, which I'm actually, it's really funny with the Dawn of the Infinite dungeons. I really dreaded them in the beginning of the season. I have honestly, they're kind of growing on me, to be honest. I'm actually enjoying them more and more every time I play them. Definitely the nerfs helped. And I think, I'm still a little bit frustrated with the battleground areas, simply just because most people don't really bait the mechanic. And if you do actually bait it, it's so much easier. I'm basically mentioning this every single video, but my point is just, playing it on Demon Hunter, that fight it's honestly really frustrating because of how the healing reduction take and stuff like that. On the Monk, I've actually been enjoying it a lot. I've also been enjoying playing it on Warrior, which is also really, really fun actually. Basically just playing with tanks that doesn't rely on self-healing but actually relies on mitigating the damage is that fight's actually really, really fun on. One thing about Fall is I'm kind of a little bit unsure of pulling this pack onto the boss, because it's definitely possible, and I definitely know I can do it. But in Pox, I have noticed that if just one person dies, that's a lot of damage lost. That just because you pull the boss, the person can't release. Just in Pox, I just in general experienced too many mistakes happening here on whatever, so I just decided to be safe and split the pools up, right? But yeah, not really much to write home about. We got a few deaths, but also we just got a ton of score from this, getting into 2100. This is what I talked about with, like, you know, I have a few scores, a few keys that just like are really, really low. So it's like a bunch of like basically free IO to get. Going into a 16 Chronotic Tides this time. And this is right here, this is one of those polls where it kind of like is clear to me that, oh, like keys and fortified is definitely a different breed than on Tyrannical. These dogs right here are gonna absolutely, like, this bleed that they're putting on me is absolutely gonna shred me. I do think that I'm also misusing my defensive options right here, or at least, you know, I should had pulled this pack with a little bit more than just my own stacker and Celestial Brew, right? But again, like it's a little bit like, this is what we talked about. Like, this is how you learn. Like these are the things that you need to like learn from, right? You don't know that this pack is gonna hurt so much as it does before actually pulling it and not having your cooldowns, because now I'm aware that, oh, okay, if I do that pull, I want some kind of defensive buff for that. So it kind of like, you know, changes your route a little bit, or like, you know, basically just that. The way you improve in this game and learn from it is by making mistakes. And notice those mistakes. Notice when you die and like, don't just blame it on the healer. Just be like, oh wow, the healer could just have healed through 6 stacks of bleed or like whatever. You can definitely have that mentality, but you're not really gonna get that far with it, to be honest. But yeah, instead just be aware of like, you know, it's fine to die as long as you learn from it. An absolutely insane amount of score from that dungeon, and also a ring, which is really nice. So one thing that, like, you know, since I'm pushing into the 16s and 17s, I'm actually starting to get these aspect crests, which of course you can use to craft items, which is something I've completely neglected up to this point. I usually don't do it until I hit this high. Well, I mean, the only thing I really like a really quick or like hurrying to craft is a weapon, but I already have this 483 weapon. So honestly, it wasn't that huge of a need for me to get a 486 weapon, sorry. But one thing that is also like a huge DPS increase on the monk is the toxic boots, or what are they called? The boots that makes it so that every time you're on chance, the abilities have a chance to cause, like, you know, AoE damage to your target, like spraying some toxins on them. And that's something I really wanted, because also like it covers your boots and your wrist, because your wrist kind of like amplifies that effect. So it's like 2 items you need to craft, but also those 2 slots are like where like my lowest gear is. I mean, I'm just gonna be honest, throughout like the entirety of Dragonflight, I actually never really been that huge fan of the crafting system. I always thought it was a little bit too like extra convoluted, or just a little bit like too complex for it to sound good, and it's really not, right? Because like you just go and you find whatever items you need, but then you go on to the auction house and then you buy it, right? But that's basically the only thing that's kind of complicated is the crest, where you first have to like build that. But like that's the thing, right? That's why I feel like it's a little bit like too convoluted, simply because like I want this item, but before I can get this item, I need like 2 or 3 or 4 active steps before I even get to that. And I don't know, I just never really, I get the idea behind it that like, oh, you need to like craft it and to like put it, but I never really enjoyed that kind of gameplay. I always just, if I want something, you know, I just want that, right? I just want to build up a currency so I can just buy that item right there, right then, instead of having to do all these like convoluted systems and stuff like that. So I don't know, I never really been a huge fan of it. So while I'm at the auction house, I actually decided this is gonna be the time where I buy all my enchants. And something you really should not sleep on is getting your gear enchanted. Now, it's absolutely right that enchants on their own are not gonna be the difference between a good or a great tank or like whatever. It's not gonna be the life-saving things, right? But I still think that enchants are so valuable. Specifically, there are like a few item pieces that are really, really good to have, like weapons and your chest with the internal stats. And then also I think when you're playing a tank, your legs and I think it's your waist as well can also have like a armor patch of some kind. All those items right there are just really, really beneficial when you're playing content where you're kind of like pushing yourself to the limit, right? Like how much can you survive? Getting that little extra defensive capability as well as like offensive with your waking stats and your weapon enchant that buffs your primary stat if you're rocking that. It's something that can greatly like improve your experience and your tanking. And when you're pushing higher content, you really need that extra little oomph, right? Like you need that. That's why like min-maxing is so popular, because when you're playing a very high level, you need to, I'm not saying that 16 or 17 is a high level, by the way. I'm just saying like for the philosophy of it is just that you reach a point at some time where you just want that little extra oomph. So getting that earlier than actually hitting that point, it's beneficial if you have the gold for it. Then absolutely do not sleep on enchants. But yeah, after crafting your crafted items, just listing them up, there's not really much you can do besides just wait for them to come, which is also a great benefit for the system. I might just hate it because I keep forgetting what the all the different things I need to buy. So I go like back and through auction house like 5 or 6 times. So that might be the reason why I'm a little bit biased against it. But anyways, we continue on our little pushing group here with not a pushing group. I don't know these people, but just pushing in general with a 16 Dark Heart figure. I do believe this is actually my own key. That I put down from a 17 to a 16, again just because I did get a little bit spooked from the Atal Desar, and I don't want to struggle too much because I don't know, I just want to like go in and feel off a little bit like how I am like in fortified higher fortified keys. So one thing right here for this little area here, this is like a body pull mania, right? Like this is where you really need to be aware if you're playing a tank that your group could potentially like body pull a lot here, and not like really much you can do about it. Honestly, it's but like being aware of it and being kind of ready for it. Is the things that can actually save you from a wipe if it actually happens. As you can see here, we actually do end up, if I do remember correctly, we do actually end up pulling even more the pack behind us. Oh, maybe not. Maybe we actually do end up clearing this here. But yeah, no, it's simply just, be aware of these like little areas throughout the different dungeons. I don't really think there is anything other than this one, right? This is like the most notorious one where most body pulls I've seen have happened right here. But as I said, preparation is key when you're playing a tank. So if you're aware of it, body pulls might occur here, then you're also ready to like pick it up and maybe even have a defensive ready for it. So absolutely. This is a really fun mistake I did. This is a completely caveman brain. So what happens here is, we are starting to get kind of crowded with mushrooms, and I want to, get out of this area because like all of this stuff is like spawning, and I see just this little smidge behind these mushrooms, but no, they can't. I don't know why, but as soon as that happened, I was like, yep. I don't know why I thought that would work, but it didn't. Love the paladin just skedaddling out of there, but we do end up getting it honestly pretty clean, a little bit on the slower end. We did have some lower DPS, but yeah, it went fine, and we actually end up 2-chesting it. And we got an 18 Everbloom that I knocked down to a 17, again, just because it's one of those like bracket things where, the sweet 17 is kind of where most people want to be at, because that's where you get the aspect crest, but that's also where you get the hero gear, or the like highest obtainable gear, right? Except for mythical level. So usually you get like if you sign up for 17, you get like a lot of people, a lot of really good players, high level and high score people signing up, which is great. It's so usually that's why I pushed it down, because I was like, well, a 17 is definitely going to be easier than an 18 just from like the people who I'm playing with. Now this is an annoying area because of this patrol right here, because both of them are casters, meaning that it's kind of a nuisance to get them really grouped up. And if you want to get them grouped up, you kind of have to use all your CC, meaning that when they finally are grouped up, you kind of just don't have really much to stop their cast. And what actually eventually happens, because it is slow to just go too. I like to go a little bit safer than but. Someone actually ends up pulling for me, and I just want to point it out that if you're deciding to play a tank, this is something that's going to happen, and it's not always the wisest idea that people decides to pull, because you can see right here, because simply people don't really have CC for them. They just get a lot of free cast off. This wasn't as bad as it could have been. Luckily I think we have a pretty decent healer with us. But I just want to point out, people are gonna pull for you. Sometimes it's good that people are pulling for you, because it kind of shows you that, oh, you could actually do a lot more than what you're doing. But other times, and it's really from DPS players who don't really know what the packs are doing or the danger level of the packs, and pulling them can lead to pretty bad vibes and stuff like that. But I just want to say that. My mentality of it, is again with the whole not toxic or whatever you want to call it. If it's a mistake and you actually wipe because of it, okay, I was going to say feel free to rip into the into the DPS, but don't be horrible. But if you die from that, that's where you can be my guy. You don't pull that, because then that happens, right? So, but save your rage, save your I told you so kind of moment for after, if you actually wipe. If you don't wipe, just continue on, whatever. We actually, interestingly enough, end up bloodlusting this pack, because we have bloodlust up, and I told him that I was gonna wait until the mana, the healer had mana, so we can go big, and decided to go bloodlust. I was a little bit unsure of it, because I was oh, don't we get more of it on the boss? But then I realized, oh, we might actually be able to get just a few seconds on the boss with bloodlust, and I think we do. I think we have 10 seconds going on the boss, which is a decent amount. I mean, of course, it's outside of our cooldowns and all that, but it's still something, right? And I think we got a good use of bloodlust right there. And I also thought it was a good use because we have bloodlust coming up here on the second boss, just for the last few percentage, but still it matters, right? It counts. a 17 rise in the next one. And I really want to showcase this boss fight because I really do think that we just play it really, really well. And I really have like a good group here. And this is what I'm like always talking about when I'm talking about baiting. You see the guys right here are like, you know, this frontal are kind of like baited towards here. You see how little of that space actually is occupied now? Like how much free room you have to like, you know, pick up the orbs and all of that. That's why like it's so important to like where you actually land those frontals or like cones or like whatever you want to call it. Now this area is actually super dangerous. It's not only do you have to worry a lot about aggro here because you have a lot of small guys that will just continually to like spawn in and like throw around. And they do, not on their own, they don't really do that much damage, but it can actually rank up really fast if you have like multiple on like your healer or DPS or like whatever. So there's a lot of aggro issues here. You need to pick up these rift mages, the portal mages or whatever they're called. Actually, when you pull them in, you can pull them in with a ranged attack. Like for example, on a warrior, you can heroic throw, or like, you know, you can use lightning here on a monk. And when you do that, they will actually run almost all the way up to you, just short range of like when you can actually interrupt them. So you just have to step into the sand just a little bit. But that's the thing, do not touch the sand unless you really, really have to, because it will stretch you. Absolutely, like completely. Like it does so much damage to you, and if you are also like having a pack as well as you going into the sand, yeah, that's not gonna be very fun for your healer or you. And then you just need to make sure that you are actually clearing up to the portal right behind me, and then the portal right in, you know, where the other rift portal mage is. You don't actually have to do the one in the that's like right next to me, like the center one, or like the middle one, or whatever you want to call it. But these two need to be like clear pathways so that Chromie can go over and like activates it. Just a little PSA, because I've absolutely stood at the portal to the battleground and not realizing why it won't open, just because I forgot that there's like a small like slimmage of like sand standing in the way of Chromie and getting to the portal. I mean the other portal to the Chromie boss. So yeah, make sure that you clear the areas, and honestly, you will be fine here. Make sure to kick the opponent. Luckily, there's not many casts here, just a bunch of ads that you need to worry about. But yeah, I'm really liking this dungeon group. There's a lot of like good players in it. At least it feels like our Paladin is absolutely like, you know, going ham on the DPS meters. People like slowly climbing up, and we have one bad bait right there. But that's like honestly fine. It's fine to have one. The problem is, like, you know, he does 3 casts, and if all of them hits the like all the friendly targets and stuff like that, that's really a nightmare. Getting 1 or maybe even 2 is absolutely fine. It's just worse if like it's all of them and it's like constantly, right? But you can see here, he got 1 off and he still had a little bit of playstorm, so he had a few stacks on him, and this is me baiting really bad. Honestly, I don't really think there's much I could have done, because, you know, I need to get the aggro and the kick on the mage or the conjurer or whatever it's called. But it's something to be aware of, you know, if you're going out. But my point was just simply just that, you know, this group right here actually really limits how many stacks he actually end up getting. But even the few stacks he does get, does actually do a fair bit of damage. So really don't underestimate this boss. He's kind of is like the bane of my existence. But I actually do generally enjoy the boss fight when, you know, it's not frustrating from people not knowing what to do. Oh, and I have learned my mistake from the last time I fought these guys where I like wiped 2 or 3 times in a row. Just use defensive cooldowns. That's basically really it. Don't like, you know, also use cooldowns, offensive cooldowns here. You want this pack to die as fast as possible. You can also see my DPSs, how much health they're losing every single time he does the AoE thing. So yeah, just use your cooldowns here. 17 Blackrock Hold, and I'm sorry for the frame rate drops, but this is what happens on my computer when I'm pulling this first pack. Like, it's just going in and then trying to get as much as aggro as I can before my computer completely shuts down. But yeah, I'm playing on a completely potato. I actually have a much better clip at it later of like how bad it actually can be sometimes. But I absolutely love this dungeon. So incredibly fun pulls. Just every single dungeon where you go in and you have a huge pull, and the Bloodlust is a win in my book. And of course, I just want to show you, despite us, that, you know, I can actually do it without dying. I feel like the only clip I show of here is just, oh, I died because I had like 1,000 stacks on me and I was like a mile away from the healer. Whoop whoop. But no, I can actually survive. The key difference I did there was I actually stood and waited for the healer to dispel me before I moved on. Because as soon as I go around the corner and line of sight the healer, that's really where all the trouble begins. Another thing you can really easily do is you can pull these packs onto the boss, but it is kind of frustrating in PoX because it kind of relies on everyone to know what you're doing. And to kind of move up fast here, because, you know, the archers will just attack randomly, so everyone needs to be line of sighting, or else they'll just stand there and, you know, just shoot away. So if you are in like a coordinated group, absolutely do this. It's a really easy pack to deal with. You have to be aware of the stun right there that I got stunned by. Don't do what I did. And then of course the archers with their when they jump and shoot, like do the volley or whatever it's called. You need to be aware of that. Like, you really need to have your eyes on that and stop that immediately. But if you do have CC for it and you do have awareness of it, this is a really easy and free time save to have. To do, sorry. It's really insane how much the monk can just survive on stagger alone and not really on like other defensive cooldowns. I mean, I did use some here, but it's just still, matter of fact that I'm just like holding on and just continually to be like really strong. Because a lot of other tanks, you know, for example, like with the Demon Hunter, right? Like there it's like very much like you use your defensive cooldown and you're absolutely untouchable. And then that fades, and then you go into this fade of like, okay, now things need to die or I'm in trouble. The monk is just kind of consistently strong throughout the pool's like lifespan, which is really, really fun to play as. And that, consistency does actually come from you not blowing all of your things at once and being a little bit patient, as I talked about in the last video. Being okay with hitting red stacker, as I am right here. But yeah, I really can't. The only problems I have with Monk, and this is a little bit my own problem because it's the talents that I'm running, it's damage. I'm doing really, really low damage, and I mean, I'm timing everything, so it's not really that I care about the damage from like a time perspective, even though that would be nice. It's very much from my aggro perspective, because I have noticed that, if I have players that are going ham, especially like, something like a Retribution Paladin, someone who just have so much burst they can, throw out, there's not really much I can do to hold aggro. And that's kind of true for every tank, but I definitely notice I played Warrior, Paladin, Demon Hunter now, and the Monk is the one that I'm like struggling the most on. And I think it's partially, sub-optimized talent builds that's more focused on defensive values. And then also just a little bit of bad play, because the thing is, with like a warrior, you can go in, you can like thunderclap, right? And then you hit all the targets around you. With the monk, you kind of just use your CAC or like your... and it's like splash damage to get aggro. But the way like you target an enemy and then you throw it on that enemy. And sometimes I can throw it on the wrong one. And I end up actually, not getting all of them, losing aggro, and there's not really much on-demand aggro abilities that I have, other than wasting an entire CAC on a mob that's like far away from everyone else. So this is a bit of a struggle. One thing I do want to point out right here, I did actually end up switching my talents and trying out something new. So Press of the Advantage was the one instead of the Weapons of Mastery or Weapons of Order, whatever it's called, the Kirin ability. So instead of that, I can take this Press of the Advantage. What that does is basically just that it removes Tiger Palm and makes it so my basic attacks, auto attacks, do more damage, and also reduces the cooldowns of my brews by 0.5 seconds. Oh, and as well as hitting, giving me a stack, and when I hit 10 stacks, I do like a really powerful attack. Now, what I thought was interesting and really, really fun is that I actually keep Blackout Combo, or whatever it's called. The one where, you use your Blackout Kick, and then you can use your CAC and it will get like 5 seconds cooldown reduction. Meaning that I have an insane cooldown reduction of my brews. Again, I'm gonna lose a little bit on damage, so to offset that just a little bit, I decided to take my third roll off and pick up Tiger Statue instead, simply because now I actually have a free keybind to use. Yeah, so please don't, if you're a monk main, please don't like cringe too much or laugh too much about me, because honestly, I just think it's super fun to try out this playstyle. It might just be, I have a slight notice that it might just be very much overkill. And also, it's a little bit of a struggle because now I actually have to get used to new key binding, which for the next couple of clips really gonna hurt the aggro issue that I talked about before. But honestly, I'm kind of interested to trying this out and seeing like how much cooldown on my brews can I actually get. So yeah, we're going into a 16 fall this time. This was the only key that I could get into that was a little bit on the lower end, but also could get a little bit of IO upgrade to practice out this new rotation, as well as the talent build. And I mean, not rotation, I mean the key binding, because you can see me throwing down the Kex and a little bit misusage of when to use Breath of Fire and all that. But one thing is really interesting, you can see my brews. The cooldowns of them are just like flying off, right? I'm swimming in brews, which is also really beneficial when I'm running something like special delivery, right? The more brews, the more damage. I mean, playing with this, I have to be honest. Playing with this playstyle, it's really fun. It's really fun. I'm really enjoying it. I think it's it's making the monk so much faster because of course you're getting your brews off cooldown very like quickly. You have just celestial brew almost up for every single pull, multiple times of doing a pull. Building it up with the brew, like getting more and more shield, is very easy because, as I mentioned before, you're just swimming in it. It's honestly a playstyle that I am hoping that Blizzard will actually, like, take a look at and actually, go forward with it, because I'm having so much fun with it. And also because I'm a little bit biased, I love cooldown reduction based specs. That's why I mained a Frost Mage last season. But yeah, the only thing I'm worried about here again is, as I mentioned before, is the damage. My damage is really low, which is not great. That's something I need to be, like, you should look at. And unfortunately, the way to look at that might be that I have to pick up different talents, right? To especially something like Weapons of Order is something that can buff off my damage a lot, simply because, it buffs my mastery, which buffs my attack power, but also just every single time I hit someone with a kek, I get a damage increase to them. So I might have to end up at the end of the day change up my talents once again and go back to the optimized common thing that you will find on Icy Veins or Wowhead and stuff like that. But for now, I still, I am enjoying that I can run my own little playstyle, right? And also because, that's kind of what we were talking about with the monk. This is honestly the way that I have the most fun with the monk, is kind of to ignore the completely optimized playstyle. And also just with the aggro thing, you can see that, like, I have one mob right here that I'm not like aggro, and I'm a little bit slow on reacting to it. And that's also just because, as I mentioned before, like the key binding, having new key bindings is such a handicap to yourself, because WoW is all about like having the a lot like brain power, right? And like, being able to, if you can shut off as many things going on in your brain as possible in WoW, so you don't have to think about your rotation, you don't have to think about all of these. The only thing you have to worry about is like the specific mechanics in front of you, or like the packs in front of you. As soon as you have to deal with the packs as well of like, okay, what rotation am I doing, or like my key bindings, oh, I didn't press what I wanted to press, where is like what's going on? That's where you see a lot of mistakes. So a lot of this is also just from me having to get a little bit used to having new key bindings. Now, funny enough, someone asked if we should Bloodlust this pack right here that I like went really big with, and I didn't see it until like after we were dead. And I just said, oh, there's no need. And then apparently the priest had died in between, and he was like, oh, healer, why are you not healing? And he thought that I meant that there's no need for healer. And yeah, I don't know, I just kind of got a little like weird vibe from him. Like, it's just, why are you so focused on you dying? Like, we have barely any deaths, we're free testing it. You don't need to do text or write or like or whatever. It's not a recurring issue. Just move on. That's kind of like all the vibes that I'm getting from that guy. And that's also another thing with these, like, going into hierarchies, because we talked about how like the brackets has changed. I'm going now into, from like the next week, I'm going into the 17s to 19s, and hopefully getting a 20 done next week. I really want to get that done as a goal, but I am actually scared. I'm really worried about the 18, 19 area right there, because that's for the people who wants to push into 20, but for some reason, one reason or another, can't do it. Those are the people I'm going to play with. And I highly expect, oh, by the way, this is where, this right here is my point of view with my computer. I hope you enjoy, because I am absolutely not enjoying this. This is real. This is real, guys. This is me. This is real. I don't know what it is with my computer. Like, I mean, it's really, really shit. It's old. It's terrible. But it will have like periods. It's not like this all the time. It will just be like this for like half an hour. Awful. And then kind of go back to a little bit more steadier for like a few hours, and then go back to this. Like, it's a nightmare. But what this is actually gonna lead up to is the monk is actually gonna yell at me. Right there, so the first time was absolutely my fault, because, well, my computer froze, right? Like, it's not, that shouldn't have happened, and I should be able to, like, get, aggro off it. Second part here is, I didn't really stand right with the witch, and he just got absolutely, like, annihilated. I could have positioned myself a little bit better, but, I mean, I also kind of want to throw it a little bit back at him, because, like, why are you standing there with, like, not your defensive up if you know the witch are spawning? This is right here where I might be in the wrong here, and I kind of want to hear your guys' opinion about this. So, this pack is really dangerous, especially in Fortified. Like, I am sweating again a little bit here just to, like, stay alive and stay healthy. Meanwhile, my guys, my range players are just standing all the way over here, and a person is jumping on the mage, and he rips aggro for me and dies to this pack right here. But he just starts to yelling at, right? Like, oh, this happens every single time. And this is where, like, I might be wrong, because looking back at the footage, I could, I guess, been faster, but, but my point is also just that at the end of the day, if you are a DPS player and you pull aggro from the tank, come closer to the tank. The worst thing you can do for your own health and well-being is to run away from the tank. Like, it is 10 out of 10 times, it's better to pop a defensive and then run into the middle of everything with the tank. So he can, like, easily pick up aggro. Because honestly, I have to be honest, I'm only human. Looking back at the footage, yeah, I could have seen that in, like, the second he jumped off and, like, taunted him going back. I have my mind on, like, 5 other things doing this. One of them is also being, the key binding issue that I mentioned before, which again is the problem that I follow myself. My point is just, to be a little bit mindful or helpful for your tank, right? Like, be aware of, like, just try and make his job easier. That's just all I want to say about that. Oh, another thing. Oh, no. Because another thing I want to say is, I was considering just, keep typing to this guy, because in the moment I really did not feel like I did anything wrong. I might have done, as I mentioned before. I'm interested to hear you guys' opinions, but don't interact with these people. I clearly see he's using all caps. He's been dead like 2 or 3 times. There's no need to call him out on anything or anything. You won't get anything out of it. He will never admit to being wrong, and even if he actually straight up were wrong, someone who's throwing out all caps like that is not someone who's going to admit that they're wrong. So you won't get anything out of it. There's no need. Only thing you potentially could happen is someone get fed up and leave. Here we also have another one who pulls a little bit extra for me, and I'm waiting for the patrol. Oh, actually no, I'm sorry. I just go ham. But we do actually not. We actually do mess up a lot of casts, and it's actually really bad because almost our entire party actually dies from this. I think I might be the sole survivor of this pack right here. But yeah, this 17 Wait Quest is the last dungeon of this week. I'm really surprised about the fortified, how much, I don't know why I'm surprised by it, you know, since I'm a tank main, but no, I actually really were going back into this, how much it actually hurts from my last fortified week. But then again, the last fortified week, I think the highest I did was a 14. And like between 8 and 14 I did. But we are number 23, 37, and I think 470 eye level, meaning that we're basically there at like the end station, right? We are ready to like actually begin the big push going into 3K, which I'm still really interested to see like how that's gonna work, and I can't wait to actually go into the higher keys with you guys, and also just talk about my experience with the different keys, and maybe also a little bit about like the season channel. But first of all, we need to hit 2500. And I can't wait to do that with you guys. Probably maybe in the next video. I don't know. But take care, everyone.